Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Mickey Loomis met with reporters on Friday to put a button finally on the Saints season and kind of to look ahead to the offseason. And most notably, the question where I guess we all have to start is whether or not Dennis Allen would definitively be back for 2023 and a second football season. Here was the question and the answer.
Dennis Allen's definitely staying as the head coach.
Yes.
Terrific. So Dennis Allen's back. We can expect another season of mediocrity, probably around 500 football, and we'll be right here next year having the exact same conversation. But Dennis Allen will be back. No great surprise there. We all expected it at this point, so terrific. Dennis Allen returns. The bigger question for New Orleans in this offseason is going to be about Sean Payton, because the Saints that's their greatest asset, as we've gone over many, many times. Michael Thomas is not tradable, and essentially every other player that the Saints have signed to a long-term deal and or have restructured their contracts, they are not tradable. Because while some of them may be good players, their contracts are not tradable. As I'll remind you, you are not only trading a player, you are also trading that player's contract. It's part of the reason why Derek Carr is not tradable, because who's going to give the Raiders an asset to take on a quarterback and give $40+ million against the cap for the next two seasons? It's just, he's not tradable. So the asset that the Saints have is Sean Payton, at least his rights. We've been over this, but Saints have Sean Payton under contract for 2 more years. If he wants to coach, then some team is going to have to give the Saints something to allow them the right to hire Sean Payton. So Mickey Loomis was peppered with some questions like that. First, he was asked if they had settled on the compensation. Some of the reports had been the Saints want a first-rounder for Sean Payton, but Loomis was a bit more coy.
No, we haven't settled on exactly what the compensation is going to be yet, but they're well aware that there's going to be compensation. Look, the reason I'm being a little bit coy about this is that it's going to be different for every team because they have different picks and they have different things available to them.
And so we know the 3 teams right now that have been granted permission to interview Sean Payton. It's the Cardinals, the Texans, and the Broncos. So the Cardinals would look, if the Saints do hold to wanting a first-round draft pick, the Cardinals have the 4th pick. So that would be the most appealing thing, right? If you could somehow wrestle the 4th pick in the draft away from the Cardinals. You can draft your franchise quarterback in round 1, and you could go from there to see if that's someone that would actually make sense. The Texans have the 2nd pick, which I think we all agree is not something that they would likely be willing to part with in this deal. But the Texans also will have the 12th pick in the draft, which they acquired via trade for Deshaun Watson from the Browns. So the Texans have the 2nd and the 12th. If you can't get the 2nd pick, would you take the 12th pick in round 1 for Sean Payton? I would suggest so. And then Denver, of course, we're going to wait and see where Denver's pick falls after the playoffs that they acquired via San Fran, via Miami with the Bradley Chubb deal. But anyway, it'll be a spot after the top 18 picks, which have settled. Now the playoff seeding will determine, where that pick will fall. But maybe the more interesting thing what Loomis said there is he did say picks. He said it's going to be different for every team because they have different picks and different things available to them. Now, maybe that's semantics and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but maybe the Saints could get more than one pick. Look, the only way that the Saints have any path back to relevancy in short order is if they nail this draft. It's got to be like 2017, because the only way that you're going to be able to overcome your cap insufficiency and, quite honestly, your quarterback situation, but that may come in the draft, is by nailing this draft. If you nail this draft and you get a whole bunch of guys that become starting players on rookie contracts, that's how you do it. That's how the Saints put together that great run from 17 to 20, where they made 4 straight playoff appearances and got so close several times. But it's really the only way they're going to be able to do it. Maybe they could recoup some draft capital. Now, A big part of this, of course, is the cap issue. And Loomis didn't shy away from that today, talking about the Saints' salary cap issues that they have heading into this offseason.
The cap is a challenge. Look, it's going to be a challenge. It's always been a challenge for us, for the last, 5 or 6 years. When you have a good team, that's what happens. But, I think the COVID year obviously created a little bit more of a challenge for us than we expected, and we'll deal with it. There's nothing there that well, it's always concerning. So I don't want to say it's not concerning, and yet, I think we do a good job of handling that.
The COVID year exacerbated the challenge. It didn't create the challenge. And I'm not criticizing here because I knew we all knew what they were doing. They were in perpetual win now mode. The Saints mortgaged the future with bad contracts and restructures to win now, to create cap space to win now. They just didn't win a Super Bowl. It's not that dissimilar from what the Denver Broncos did when they had Peyton Manning. They knew they had a short window with an old quarterback. They went all in. They made it to 2 Super Bowls. They won one of them. They haven't made the playoffs in 7 years since. And that's a similar reality the Saints are facing if they can't figure out quarterback. But the Broncos got their Super Bowl. The Saints didn't. Again, so I'm not criticizing. I understand why they did it, and it would be hypocritical of me to now, with the benefit of hindsight, say that was the wrong path. I didn't criticize them at the time because I understood what they were doing. It just didn't work. And that sucks, but that's the reality. But you're $53 million over the cap right now. That's not a situation created by COVID. Essentially, it's like if you buy on your credit card every single thing you do on your credit card, and when you get your paycheck, you're going to pay down that credit card. Well, okay, but something like COVID or some life event happens, and now your paycheck is gone or reduced, and you can't make those payments. The situation wasn't created by the event. The event exacerbated the situation you created by your poor financial decisions. That's where the Saints are right now. So at $53 million over the cap, they're going to have a lot of work to do here in this offseason to get cap compliant and to try to field a team that's going to be able to try to compete. And that's the real frustrating thing, because you still have some great players, but great players that are near the end of their career that want to win. Cameron Jordan, DeMario Davis. I'm not going to say Alvin Kamara is near the end of his career, but he's pushing on a 30-year-old back. He's been in the league for 7 years now, and we all know what the shelf life of a running back in the NFL is. So you're looking at guys that are veteran players that are going to want an opportunity to win, and realistically, you may not be able to do it in New Orleans. A couple of other things. Mickey Loomis was asked about the Michael Thomas restructure, which we talked about earlier this week. For all intents and purposes, that ends Michael Thomas's time in New Orleans, but Mickey Loomis stopped short of saying that.
Yeah, I think we just wanted some flexibility for both of us to, see where we're at going forward and give us a little time to, work on that. Look, the main thing here with Mike is for him to get healthy and get back being the player that he's been for us in the past. And, look, I was really excited about him at the beginning of our season, and unfortunately he had the toe injury and that had to get taken care of, but it's not anything that he can't come back from.
Mickey Loomis said it creates flexibility, but we've been over it before. The numbers tell you Michael Thomas is not going to be back in New Orleans, because if he's on this roster in the middle of March, he's guaranteed a $30+ million contract or roster bonus for 2024, which there's just no chance the Saints will allow that to happen. So Mickey Loomis won't say it, but it's an actions speak louder than words type deal. Look at the contract. Michael Thomas is going to be done in New Orleans. And the other thing, too, that people often ask is about staff changes, and everyone wants to know about Pete Carmichael. And Mickey Loomis obviously wasn't going to say much on that, so here was his very pithy answer.
Yeah, no, we haven't even really discussed it, to be honest with you.
Okay. So if they haven't discussed it, that's foolish. So I'm assuming they have. He's just not going to say it, and that's okay. But you're coming off a season where you were 7-10. A season where you were anemic offensively, and if you try to keep the status quo in place, what's the Einstein about the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Like, you can't do this again and expect a different result. You have to make dramatic changes. You can't stay the course here with what you did this year, because the results are what they are. And now this is back-to-back seasons you've missed the playoffs. So you are going to have to add an option at quarterback that gives you a chance to be more explosive. you're going to have to add some different mind, some different voice into the offensive coaching staff that's going to give you opportunities to be a more dynamic offense, because you're not that right now. So my assumption here is that staff changes are going to come. And if they don't, then the people responsible for not making the staff changes ultimately are putting themselves at risk, namely as a Mickey Loomis. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.